Donald Trump says he's got his eyes on the Texas House. This is Monday, February 10th, 2025.
Texas Scorecard presents the day's first news for the Lone Star State, the Texas Minute, with your host, Michael Quinn Sullivan.
Thanks for kicking off your week with the Texas Minute. If you enjoyed today's edition, I hope you'll share it with your friends and encourage them to subscribe. And if you don't, maybe we can just keep this between ourselves. Cool? Let's jump into the news. Democrats on the Harris County Commissioners Court voted to give their county attorney the authority to file lawsuits or join existing lawsuits against President Donald Trump's executive actions without needing to wait for a vote of approval. Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee requested that authority to take legal action without court approval for a 6-month period with the option to request a renewal. Meanwhile, Harris County is $120 million short for approved flood control projects. Back in 2019, the county approved a prioritization framework for a $2.5 billion flood control bond program that had passed a year earlier. But one county official said those project costs were, quote, guesstimates, because no actual engineering studies had been completed before going to the voters. Of course, Harris County Judge Lynn Hidalgo has a solution. The Democrat says she wants the commissioners to consider a new flood control debt program to pay for the shortfall and other projects. So, no money for flood control, but money to sue President Trump. Got it. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz has introduced a constitutional amendment that would require a total of no more than 9 Supreme Court justices on the bench at a time. In recent years, Democrats have threatened to pack the court by creating new slots on the Supreme Court. Cruz said Democrats have taken this approach because they, quote, seek to use the court to advance policy goals they can't accomplish electorally. The Constitution doesn't specify the number of justices on the Supreme Court. That number fluctuated until the Judiciary Act of 1869 when it was set at 9. In 1937, President Franklin Roosevelt tried to increase the number of justices in order to get more favorable rulings for his various socialist programs. That push was eventually abandoned. A survey by the Wall Street Journal in mid-2024 found that a majority of Americans don't favor increasing the number of SCOTUS justices. Math courses being taught this spring at the University of Texas at Austin focus on Marxist theory and racial inequality. These courses count toward the university's core curriculum. One of the courses is titled Measuring Racial Inequality: Indexes to Calculate Disparities and Segregation. Another UT math class is Numbering Race. Both of these attempt to present far-left ideologies as objective concepts. According to the spring 2025 syllabus for Numbering Race, Professor Ricardo Enrique Lowe forbids students from sharing course materials with the public and requires that class recordings be kept confidential. So apparently, Mr. Lowe is sensitive about his woke pseudo-intellectualism being mocked on social media. The Texas Minute will be right back.
Why get your news from people who don't share your values? Get news stories from Texas Scorecard. We provide real news for real Texans. Go to TexasScorecard.com today.
On Saturday, President Donald Trump issued a clear warning to the Texas House, declaring that he'll be, quote, watching them closely as they decide the fate of a major school choice initiative. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump praised Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and State Senator Brandon Creighton for their work in passing Senate Bill 2. That's legislation that would create a school choice program with education savings accounts. However, Mr. Trump made it clear that the real test lies ahead in the Texas House, where school choice legislation has repeatedly been killed. We're almost a month into the new session, and the House still doesn't have committee assignments and has not yet considered any legislation. You can find the details of this story and the others mentioned today and keep up with the latest news by visiting TexasScorecard.com. This edition of the Texas Minute was produced by Nick Shepard and based on the original reporting of Joseph Trimmer, Deborah McClure, Valerie Munoz, and Brandon Waltons. I look forward to seeing you out around the Lone Star State. Let's make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to the first news of the day for the Lone Star State. This has been the Texas Minute with your host, Michael Quinn Sullivan.